are the Group 3 representatives,
reporting about
trade and commerce.
Trade involves buying, selling, and exchanging in return of money or money's worth.
While commerce refers not only to buying and selling of goods, but it includes other activities such as transport, insurance, warehousing, banking, and advertising, which help buying and selling of goods.
The difference between trade and commerce. Trade is a branch of commerce,
while commerce is a branch of business.
The Visayan are the one who practice trades like blacksmithy, boat building, or pot making, or professionals in the sense of being compensated for specialized skills but not necessarily in a sense of supporting themselves by their professions. Markets for their wares and services were limited. Most men did their own carpentry and their wives moved their own cloth. It appears that all either farmed or belonged to a farming family, including fishermen, even members of the dato class. But there were clearly those who practiced their crops, full-time experts like shipwrights or goldsmiths, for example, or the producers of export textile who are the slaves, dependents, or employees of dato capitalists. Traders, 24 full-time professionals, peddlers, and itinerant merchants, especially those who owned their own vessels, rented out cargo space and traveled a long distances from island to island carrying goods in both directions.
The ironworking. Smithing was considered the noblest profession, probably because only the wealthiest datus had the means to import all the raw materials. If they were indeed the ultimate source of all metal tools, including the Sweden farmers' bolos, they would have exercised effective control over Visayas' means of production. Here one of the specialized duels included this in the list below. First is the abluwang, drill, awl, batakan, a blade for slicing korol. Next is the woodworking. Woodworking is the activity or skill of making items from the wood, and includes cabinet making, wood carving, joinery, carpentry, and wood turning. Different species were filled during different phases of the moon. Some were believed to be more solid on the eastern side, and the male trees always from the females of the same species. Next is architecture. Architecture is the art and science of designing buildings and other physical structures. A wider definition often includes the design of the total built environment from the macro level of town planning, urban design, and landscape architecture to the micro level of construction details and sometimes furnitures. For example, the Visaya word for house is balay. When kabalayan was settlement, magkabalay. Man and a wife, minalay, meant married. There are basically three types of wooden structures that might be called townhouses, cottages, built by light materials near the fields, and tree houses. Next is boat building. Boat building is the design and construction of boats and their systems. This includes at a minimum with the hull, with propulsion, mechanical, navigation, safety, and other systems as a craft requires. Visayan boat builders preferred use lawaan because it is large enough for a baruto 120 centimeters wide to be hewn out of a single trunk. A baruto was basically what the Spaniards called canoa, a dug-out canoe. Pottery is the process and products of making vessels and other objects with clay and other ceramic materials, which are fired at high temperatures to give them a hard, durable form. Major types includes earthenware, stoneware, and porcelain. The Visayan potter's craft was dihuon, and it was practiced by a female potters using not a potter's wheel, but a paddle and anvil technique. The common cooking pot was daba or kurun, or angler, or tunok in Panay. Gold working. Gold is mentioned in the early Spanish accounts more often than any other one substance. Evidence not only their interest in it, but in the fact that they found it everywhere they went. They seem never to have seen a Visayan without a gold on his person, and said that all of them could tell where any hold came from just by looking at it. The Visayan called gold bulawan, and fine gold himulawan, presumably from Bulao. red or rosy, a color they often produce artificially with purog orki.
Textile. Textile products play a vital role in meeting man's basic needs. We often only consider textiles to be the clothes we wear. Obviously, the clothing industry is where the majority of textiles are produced and used. However, textiles are also important in all aspects of our lives, from birth to death, or food industry, and also building materials. Domestic trade. Domestic trade or international trade is the trade which takes places between the different regions of the same country. For example, the trade between Calcutta and Mumbai, or Calcutta and Chennai, and etc. Domestic trade means performing business transactions within the borders of a nation. It is also known as international trade or home trade. Weaving. A few years back, Philippine traditional weaving practices and colorful indigenous textiles were put into spotlight when it was put on permanent exhibition at the National Museum. Through the efforts of San Loren Legarda, called or entitled Hibla ng Lahing Pilipino. International commerce. International business is easier and more important than ever. In the world's current economy, global business has become just as much a part of entrepreneurship as marketing, and should be the ultimate goal for expansion. Chinese Enigma. The Chinese Enigma, the presence of Chinese trade goods in the 16th century Visayas, is a well-attested fact. But the presence of the Chinese themselves is more problematic. Early Spanish explorers were told in Lianga Bay that Chinese junks came to Cebu and Mindanao every year. In Cebu, they were told that 8 survivors of the Magellan expedition had been sold to Chinese traders in the Sarangani province. The Chinese traded in Cotabato and in Abuye. The Chinese traders actually resided in Sugod. In conclusion, we can say that trade and commerce are interrelated with each other. It can be said that international trade leads to economic growth provided the policy measures and economic infrastructures are accommodative enough to cope with the changes in social and financial scenarios that may result from it. Moreover, trades and commerce opens up the opportunity for developed countries whereby it increases their capacity to control or to produce and acquire goods, and it should however be controlled so as it avoid the closure of some local companies.